Hey, what's shaking, everybody? Griff Hamlin here from Blues Guitar Unleashed. Welcome and thanks for joining me. Today in this video, I want to take a little time and talk to the beginners. Okay, if you're new to playing the blues, new to playing guitar in general, I want to talk about the 12-bar blues and what that means. And this came, a lot of times my lessons come from stuff people ask. If people ask questions, I like to answer them. So if you are not totally hip to what a 12-bar blues is, a lot of folks were asking, what were the chords that you were playing into your looper in whatever lesson? It's always a 12-bar blues. When we talk about the blues, we're pretty much always talking about a 12-bar blues. So if you don't know what a 12-bar blues is, if you don't even know what a bar is beyond a place to get a drink, we're going to handle all that kind of stuff today in this video. So hopefully that'll sort of put you on a sound footing, because one of the things about blues that makes it unique is that we can rely on the chord change. We know what the chord change is going to be. If somebody says, hey, we're going to play blues in E, if you know blues, you know what the chords are going to be. There's nobody has to put a chart in front of you. Nobody has to say, here's the chords. We all know what they're going to be. And this is one of the great things about blues, and it's one of the reasons that you can go to a blues jam and 3 or 4 or 5 people who have never even met before, let alone played together before, can get up on a stage and play a blues song. It's because we all know what that 12-bar blues is going to be. So I'm going to show you what a 12-bar blues is, how to find the 3 chords involved, how they fit within those 12 measures or bars, and I'll give you an idea or two of how to actually play those chords, what we call a rhythm figure, which is another thing, or another thing that you have to kind of keep in mind. So as always, this is again one of the things that's covered. If you don't have my How to Jam downloadable ebook, I encourage you to grab that. It's very useful. Has a lot of this kind of stuff kind of built in for you. So let me, without further ado, I'm just going to kind of jump right in today. So you're going to see some of me, but you're also going to see some on-screen stuff going on. So right here, there's 4 things that we're going to talk about today. And the first thing is, as I mentioned, we're going to discuss, what is a bar? We call it the 12-bar blues. What does that mean? What is a bar, right? We're going to talk about the 3 chords that you will find. Some people say, oh, it's a 1, 4, 5. Okay, well, what the heck does 1, 4, and 5 mean? And why do we always write them in Roman numerals? And why are they uppercase sometimes and lowercase sometimes, and all that stuff? And you might think it's silly, but it matters. And also, how are the chords placed? How many bars do we play of the 1 chord? Do you start with a 5? Do you start with a 4? Who knows, right? So we got to get all that stuff in there. And finally, like I said, we're going to talk about how to strum, or how to play these chords. So the first thing is the 12-bar blues. Okay, so the first thing you got to know is that a bar is simply a measure. It's a measure of music. A bar is another name for a measure. We could call it a 12-measure blues, but we call it a 12-bar blues. So there's a bar, there's a bar. You can probably see from that there are, in fact, 12 of them. And you'll notice that over the first bar, instead of having a chord written, I have a Roman numeral 1. And then at the 5th bar, I have a Roman numeral 4. And then down there at the 9th bar, I have a Roman numeral 5. And there's some other ones. But 1, 4, and 5 are the biggies. So what's this 1, 4, 5? How does this work? How do we figure this out? Okay, so the 1, 4, 5 comes from not a blues scale, but a major scale. Now, you may not know a major scale, and that's okay. I'll show you how to play one really quick. If I was going to play one in A, I would start here at A on my, seems a little quiet. I think that's okay. I'll get a little more oomph. Okay, so if I was going to play, say, starting here at this A at the 5th fret of the 6th string, that's the first note of my A major scale. The second note is the B at the 7th fret on the 6th string. The third note is the C sharp at the 4th fret of the 5th string. The 4th note in the scale is the 5th fret, the D, on the 5th string. The 5th note in the scale, the 7th fret on the 5th string. Okay, so there's the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. 6th note is an F sharp here at the 4th fret of the 4th string. G sharp is here at the is my 7th tone, and that's at the 6th fret of the 4th string. And finally, the 8th or the 1st fret again for the A. So I'm this is what we call an octave, and that's the 7th fret on the 4th string. So I'm repeating, that I would start over. So you might know that as the do re mi fa sol la ti do scale. You might know it as the major scale. You might never have seen it before in your life. But from a musical perspective, and I'll say a music theory perspective, but really this goes beyond music theory, pretty much everything can be related back to a major scale. It's a handy thing to know how to do. Even if you can't play it fast, even if you never use it for soloing, which you wouldn't in a blues, by the way. You don't use the major scale when you solo in a blues. It's really not one of the choices. Then it's useful to figure out other stuff. It's useful to figure out other notes that you might need. So if you were paying attention, you might notice that I talked about, okay, well, this is the 1st note of the scale. So therefore it is if I build a chord off of this note, we would call it the 1 chord, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you might have noticed that the 4 was a D. If I build a chord off of that D, that's my 4 chord. Kind of cool, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was the 5th note. If I build a chord off of that note, that's my 5 chord. So in the key of A, so what we say is in the key of A, because I started on an A, the 1 chord is A, and in blues we make them all dominant 7th chords, or we make them all minor. Or there's some other variations, but let's go with dominant 7th because that's the most common. So we make it what's called a 7th chord. Dominant 7th is different from major 7 and different from minor 7. Okay, this would be A7, not A MAJ 7. That's A major 7. Sounds very different. Or A MIN 7 is that, also very different. So we have an A7, that's our 1 chord. We have a D7, that's our 4 chord. And we have an E7. That's our 5 chord, right? If I were to change the key, okay, meaning, let's say I were to go to C, and I was going to start my major scale there. Same thing. C is my 1. Right above it, 1, 2, 3, 4. F is my 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. G is my 5. Okay, I could play the G down here. It doesn't matter. Some form of G. I can play it here. I can play it here. There's a lot of ways that you can play a G7. But hopefully you get the idea that the way we come up with this 1, 4, and 5 is we take a major scale. We build a chord off of the 1st note, the 4th note, and the 5th note. Okay. Now one thing that's really handy, it's a really nice coincidence. If your root note of the 1 is on the 6th string, the root note on the 4 is always just on the same fret, but on the next string up. And the 5 is always just 2 frets up from there. So to me, that's super handy and makes it very, very quick and very easy to find whatever the 3 chords are. So it doesn't matter what you play. So you could literally, walk into a jam session and somebody calls a tune you've never heard of before and you say, what key? And they say it's 12th bar in G. Okay. You now know that G7, C7, and D7 are your 3 chords. You now know the 3 chords that are going to be used in the song. Okay? But what you don't know is how those chords are going to show up in the song. So that's where we're going to go back to this. Now, I chose the key of A, right? So I replaced my 1 chord with an A7. You can see I replaced my 4 chord with a D7. I went ahead and gave them the names. So the way the 12th bar blues works is that the first 4 bars are A7. Cool. So that means if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, that whole time you're gonna play A7. Now there is a variation called a quick change where you play a 4 chord in the second bar. That exists, but it's not the standard, so I'll save that for another time. Coming up on bar 5, the second line there, you play the D7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, and then you go back to the 1 chord. In this case, A7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Bar 9, start of the third line, we go to the 5 chord, E7. Play that for 4 bars, or 4 beats, right? 1 bar, 1, 2, 3, 4. Play the D7 chord, 1, 2, 3, 4. Play the A7 chord, 1, 2, 3, 4. And finally, the 5 chord. So 4 bars of 1, 2 bars of 4, 2 bars of 1. The last 4 bars are the 5, 4, 1, 5. Those last 2 bars are often called the turnaround. Okay, that's to turn around a tune means to kind of take it's usually the end of a form in blues and jazz. We call it a turnaround, and it happens a lot. And it just kind of turns the song around to go back and start over again, because that's exactly what happens when you get to the end of the 12th bar. You simply go back to the beginning and start over again. Okay, so that is how the 12th bar blues works. So if I said, for example, we're going to play Sweet Home Chicago, and we're going to play it in A, you'd say, okay, great. So I know that I'm going to play A7 for 4 bars. I'm going to play D7 for 2 bars. I'm going to play A7 for 2 bars. I'm going to play E7, and then I'm going to play D7, and then I'm going to play A7, and then I'm going to play E7, and then we're going to do that over and over and over again. If I says, we're going to play, Drift and Blues, and we're going to play an E. So I know that I've got E, A, and B. I'm going to play 4 bars of E7, 2 bars of A7, 2 bars of E7, a bar of B7, a bar of A7, a bar of E7, and a bar of B7. There are literally thousands of songs. I'm sure it's got to be in the thousands of songs that fall into this 12-bar blues format. And you can play them all, every last one of them. And you now know all the chords. It really works that way. It's one of the great things about playing the blues. Okay. What I haven't showed you, and what we really haven't talked about though, is how you're actually going to play. Like if I say play an A7 for 4 bars, okay, well, what do you mean by that? This is where what we call rhythm figures come into play. Some people call them strum patterns. I don't really strum usually when I play a blues. If I'm playing this, I don't call that a strum pattern. I'm not really strumming. That's more like that's what I call a rhythm figure, okay, or a riff. Some people shorten it to riff. There are a lot of different versions of those out there in the world, okay? I could just play the chord, right? It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3. I'm playing the blues. It just doesn't sound very interesting. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, yeah, that's a really dull rhythm figure, but I could do it. It's not wrong. It's just not very exciting, right? It's better when you're playing by yourself. Part of it depends a lot on the tempo, depends a lot on the situation. If you're playing by yourself, the most common one is the, this sort of thing. And I have other videos on how to play this figure. I call it the blues in E or the blues in A pattern. And you can certainly, search around and find that easy enough. I don't want to spend another 10 minutes going through how to play that. But that's a great figure if you're playing by yourself. If you can even do it faster. Right, I can do it like that if I need to. I can play Johnny B. Good in a straight feel. Okay, so it'll work. It'll work in a band setting as well if it's kind of understood if you're the only guitar player. If there's 2 guitar players, usually only one guitar player can play that because it's kind of rumbly. It sits in the low end. So a lot of times I play some sort of something with chords that are up a little bit higher. And if you look, I'll try and find these videos for you and leave links somewhere near wherever you're watching this video. But I have a video on what I call the two-note chords, and I use a little what I call a comping pattern. Comping is short for accompanying. That's another term you should know. Something 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 5, and 2, and 1, 2, 3. And I usually do a lot of this when there's a full band. Kind of stay out of the way. And 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3. And here's the 5 and the 4 and the 1. And again, that's stuff that I cover again in other places. And in fact, I think that particular pattern is in my little guidebook if you don't have it. But I do have a video of the comping pattern, I call it, and I use that pattern a lot, and it works really, really well. So that is how the 12-bar blues works. It's really not super complex. It takes a little getting used to. When you first try to figure out what those 3 chords are, it's probably best to have your guitar in your hand so that you can, look and see those root notes right there. And assuming that you have, the chord shapes to go with them, it should be no trouble at all. If you're still new on getting, blues chords and chord shapes, then you might want to kind of handle some of that first. And again, that would be a topic for another video. But you probably need to have some E7, A7, B7, G7, C7. A lot of those standard seventh chords. That's stuff that you're going to need. Okay, so I think that's probably a good point to wrap up. I don't see anybody asking how many blues forms are there in total. There's the 12-bar blues. The other standard 12-bar, the other standard form is called the 8-bar blues. The 8-bar blues is much less standard. If somebody says they're playing an 8-bar blues, there's a lot of different kinds of 8-bar blues. I actually have a course called How to Build Blues Songs that really digs in. I've got 140 different examples in there because there's different intros. There are variations of the 12-bar blues. I mentioned the quick change, but there's other things you can do with the turnaround. In a slow blues, it can go 1-4, 1-5. In a faster blues, like in Johnny Be Good, they don't go back to the 5 at the end. They just stay on the 1. There are some variations, and it's helpful to have a little bit of experience. Again, there's that word, that experience word. It helps to have some experience because people do alter the things, but fundamentally they don't really change. And like I said, the 8-bar blues, there are a lot more variations of the 8-bar blues. So Key to the Highway is often, kind of the standard for the 8-bar blues, and I have a video on that as well. But even that, if somebody says we're playing an 8-bar blues, it may not be that. There's a lot more variations there. Past that, there is a 16-bar blues that you'd rarely hear. It's just doesn't come up very often. It really is almost all the 12-bar and occasionally the 8-bar blues. Big city blues, I've not heard that expression. So I don't know if that's the same thing as a quick change or not, Eric. Sorry, I really don't know. But I think, wow, it looks like this is great. Okay, history, how do you combine other types of dominance into a 12-bar? I hope by other types of dominance you mean like the 9th or the 11th or the 13th. They're all valid. 7th chords, 9th chords, 11 and 13 are all in what's called the dominant family. So that makes them interchangeable as long as they sound good to you, right? So I could play A7 as is. I could play D9, I could play D13, D7, D11, probably going to sound a little strange. Maybe a 13 there. You can do things like 7 sharp 9, but again, it's going to depend on whatever else is going around. Your ear can guide you, but all of them are fundamentally fair game. So There we go. Hey guys. All right, very good. Minor chord blues. Yes, all three chords could also be minor. You could have minor, A minor, D minor, E minor. Tin Pan Alley, for example. That's a good example of a minor where all three chords are minor. Either way. But again, the most common is the dominant seventh. All right. So hey, I'm gonna bow out. I think my work here is done for today. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope this has helped a little bit. If if you're not a beginner but you know someone who is and you think they'd get some benefit out of this, by all means, please share it with them. And of course, as always, check out bluesguitarunleashed.com for lots more stuff. And I will talk to you soon. Take care of yourselves.